think most of us think we know what a mindset is. We think, oh, it's kind of a mental stance where, we are positive or we are negative or we believe something or we don't believe something. But a mindset actually has a very specific definition. And here I'm referring to the definition provided by Dr. Ali Crum. Ali Crum is also a professor of psychology at Stanford. She runs her own laboratory working on stress-related mindsets and other mindsets. She's actually been a guest on this podcast previously. Highly recommend you listen to that episode if you haven't already. Dr. Crum defines a mindset as, quote, a mental frame or lens that selectively organizes and encodes information. And I think the key thing to highlight there is organizes information. Because as you all well know, we are constantly being bombarded with information from the outside world, sensory information about what's going on with our visual system, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're feeling. We are also bombarded with internal sensations of how full or empty our gut feels. Are we hungry? Are we tired? Are we anxious? Are we calm, etc.? So tons and tons of information funneling into our brain, and mindsets really help us organize that information such that we pay attention to certain things and not others, and we respond to certain things and not others. Okay, so here I'm not trying to put additional language on something simple in order to make it complex. I'm trying to put a little bit of language, that is that a mindset does many things, but it mainly organizes information. I'll add to that 4 specific actions or inactions in a way that allows us to simplify our world, in a way that allows us to make certain choices and do away with thinking about and acting on other types of information. The other thing about mindsets is that they include entire narratives. And most of the time, we aren't even aware of how those narratives are operating. Meaning, we don't walk around looking at opportunities in the world, like the opportunity to get better at fitness or a sport or music or arithmetic or languages or anything for that matter, thinking, okay, what is my mental frame or lens that selectively organizes and encodes information? We don't do that. Instead, what we have are stories. And those stories are usually attached to our sense of identity. Like, I'll just use myself, for instance. I do not think of myself as a good musician. In fact, I can't read music. I'm terrible at playing instruments. I like listening to music, but I consider myself a terrible musician, right? I've really assigned a value, or I've assigned my value to music and my relationship to music, right? We tend to do that. We can also do it in the opposite direction, right? I've been running a laboratory for a long time, been in science for close to 3 decades. So if you ask me, do I feel proficient at science? I'd say, yeah, I'm proficient at science. I know how to do experiments, set up experiments, write research papers, write grants, etc. I'm pretty good at it, right? We tend to decide if we are good or bad at things, and we tend to integrate those with our identity somewhat or a lot, depending on whether or not, we're a professional or amateur, or how much we engage in an activity. The point being that mindsets include all of these narratives, and often those narratives are visible to us if we think about them. But most of the time, we are moving through the world, meaning school, work, relationships, and all our endeavors without a lot of careful thought about the narratives we carry. And the beauty of growth mindset is that it forces us to step back and ask ourselves some simple questions. These are questions that you could ask yourself right now. And in fact, I highly recommend you do. You could ask yourself, for instance, what have I been told I'm really good at? You should also ask yourself, what have I been told I'm really poor at, that I'm just not good at? What have I told myself I'm really good at? And what have I told myself I'm really bad at? And then a second set of questions is, what am I good at and why? Did it come naturally to me? Did I apply myself for many years?